And there are, I think, almost like code words that clients will share with you. They don't realize they're doing it, but they are, and we need to be aware of them, right? So think of it this way. The open meeting can tee up, set up on a platter the following, right? One, the client will tell you that they want full human life value. And if you ask the right questions, if you get the right details, then getting agreement for full human life value in the next meeting is as easy as could be, right? Given that that is a thing that you can make very, very difficult, it can be made very, very easy if you set it up the right way. Distribution planning. And it's not, I don't just mean that we talk about it and they walk away and they now have the knowledge of distribution planning. I mean they recognize that they have a problem. Ask yourself that. If people walk away from your open, if they're let's say of the age frame 45 to 65, they walk away from your open thinking, I might have a problem here. They should. Every time they should. It's just about everybody walking the face of the earth in that age range has a problem. They just may not realize it yet. I know that we can get commitment for what I think of as the diversification of cash flow into different buckets. We're hearing somebody on the line. We're going to do a little bit of interaction today, so I don't want to mute everybody, but by God, I will. So please put your phone on mute if you don't have something to share with us. What I mean by this is you can get commitment from the client that they're telling you, I want to save in a bucket other than my 401k. If you say the right things, you ask the right questions in the open, they'll tell you that. Before we have to get into the weeds of, hey, what should we do with this money, they're telling you, I'd feel better about the world, about my life if I could save in some other buckets. Save. So I'm thinking in a taxable, or let's just put it this way. They want to save with after-tax dollars. And whether that goes into investments or savings account or Roth IRA or whole life insurance, we don't really care at this point. We're getting commitment. That's where the cash flow is headed. We are getting setting up an easy data collection. Nothing like it. The hardest part of the process, so if we can make that easy, then everybody's happy. We can set up the expectation for, the want for tax efficiency. Like that can be what our process is about, among other things. That's good. That's something we can deliver on. The want for more liquidity. I find most people don't have liquidity, but when they sit down with a financial advisor, that's not what they talk about. Well, I can have someone wanting liquidity, so they're excited when I show them a plan that allows them to build wealth and have liquidity, right? Among all the other things that we're going to do. But I have to have them say that they want it, or it's not real. It's not enough for me to tell them it's important, right? They've got to tell me that it's important, and that only happens in the open. And then finally, what I want to elicit from them is the want for, or a desire, or a willingness to be helped. And then I help people do these things. Would you like my help? I would love your help. That's like a relationship that we have in place now, as opposed to us pitching them something, selling them something. We better impress them next time. Instead, they're coming at us with a different attitude. But that only happens if you set the tone the right way in the open meeting, right? So what we're going to work on today is examples of how we do these things, right? We'll get into the details on some of them, and we'll just touch base on others that maybe will be covered in another time. But all these things should be achievable in the open, right? Not for every case, because every case doesn't look like this. All these things are, I think, easy things that we should be able to achieve if we set up the open the right way. So big picture standpoint, before we break down the structure of the open and the ways that we do these different things, I always want to keep in mind, what do we have to do in the open? Obviously, our goal, our one objective is what? Data. Beautiful. So the objective is data, but we can't just focus on data to get data, right? We've got to focus on some other things to get data. We've got to really do, I think, 3 things. Some of these you can't even control, so you don't have to worry about it, but it's good to be aware of this fact, right? 3 things. 1, you've got to be credible. As in, like, what does credible mean? Somebody define that for me as it relates to the open. What do you think that means? Believable, but I think it is even more than just believable. Credible. Trustworthy is actually number 2. Right? Trustworthy is its own item. They've got to see that you're trustworthy. Like, what, something about Roger, my conversation with Roger for 30 or 45 minutes, I trust him enough to turn over some data. Credible. What does credible really mean?
You know what you're talking about.
Good. Yeah, you know what you're talking about. You have the ability, maybe, because you know what you're talking about, to create value. So, hey, this guy or gal knows what they're talking about. So I've got to do something. I've got to say something. I've got to give off a certain air during this meeting, during this conversation, that they recognize that I know what I'm talking about. Got to be trustworthy. Part of trustworthy, like, you either are or you are not trustworthy, but what we're talking about here is not are you or aren't you, it's are you perceived to be trustworthy. Like, I feel like everybody in the room and on the call is trustworthy. The question is, people perceive that you're trustworthy, and you can cause them to have the wrong perception if you ask wrong questions, if you say the wrong things. It's usually saying the wrong things, not asking the wrong questions, right? Trustworthy. And then 3, likable. Maybe you can or cannot control it. I think everybody in the room and on the call is likable. Do the clients think you're likable, right? And I would say the way to be likable is simply to be yourself, be comfortable. And you can only do that, you can only be yourself and be comfortable if you're prepared, right? Like, you aren't stressed out, you don't have any anxiety about the meeting, you are prepared. Therefore, you're relaxed, you're going to be yourself, you're going to sound like an authentic human being, and therefore you're going to be somebody who's likable. Like, oh, wow, Bob is the genuine article. I would actually not be opposed to spending another hour in his presence. That's important. That's part of what they're going to agree to. So credible, trustworthy, likable. However you can get those 3 things done, you have a high degree of success, I think, in getting that next meeting set and the data agreement in hand.